Ooh, it has gotten cold out in rural Texas, so we want to warm things up with a nice pot of soup. My husband is teaching me how to make some of the Louisiana specials. This one is a seafood Couvillion. One of the things that he said this time of the year is all about the gumbos, the soups, and the stews. So we're going to take a half a cup of neutral oil. I use vegetable oil and a half a cup of flour. We're going to mix it around to make our roux, and you're going to have to tend to it like a baby. You're going to have to make sure it's not going to burn. So every time it's going to bubble up, you're going to just let it bubble for a few seconds, and then you're going to give it a nice stir. This is probably the longest process. It probably took about 10, maybe even 15 minutes to get the roux the right color so we could start adding in all of our vegetables. So again, it's just a stirring fest. We're just going to continue to stir until it continues to boil and get a little bit darker. But one of the things I love about my husband, he loved talking about how his grandma and his papa and his mom always used to make Coubion, or they would make etouffee or gumbo, things like that. So again, I'm from North Texas, so I'm not really up on what the Louisiana techniques are, so he's just slowly showing me how to make some of the favorites. So now we're going to be adding in our vegetables. I have some mixed bell peppers, I added in some green onions, I added in some celery, I added some white onions, and again, all of the things that I use are frozen, because what we're doing right now is we're clearing out our freezer to get rid of a lot of things so we can start stocking it up again for the holidays. So that's the reason you see a lot of my things are frozen. Now I'm going to be adding in my broth. I'm adding in broth just a little bit at a time, just to make sure that it's nice and consistent. It's not lumpy or anything like that. So once we added in our vegetable broth, we're going to let it sit and boil for maybe about 5 or 10 minutes. Also, I'm going to be adding in that holy moly. Our holy moly is wonderful. It's our gumbo seasoning, but we add it to anything like a soup or a stew. It's already got all the flavors that you need. So you just gonna continue to stir that, and what we're trying to do is to get it up into a boil so we can start adding in our seafood. We're gonna add in some of our leftover mahi-mahi we had. I know my husband said that normally they'd add catfish, but we had mahi-mahi in the freezer and some shrimp. Also, I wanted to give it a good little taste to see if I need to add any more seasoning. So, of course, I needed to add just a little bit more. I did add a little bit more garlic because we like our food to be nice and garlicky, and just a little bit of salt, because if I had continued to add that gumbo seasoning in, it would have been hot, and I don't really like mine very hot. So I just added a little bit of salt just to give it a little bit of more saltiness. Also, throughout, I'm going to make sure I'm tasting it to make sure it has the right taste. Now I think I'm going to add a little bit of that Ole Cajun, because remember, the Ole Cajuns know how to season. So that's always one of the last things I add to pretty much every dish that I cook. So we're going to stir just a little bit of that in. Again, I don't know what it is about that. That's a special mix that my husband came up with, but it's perfect for any dish. Doesn't have to be Creole, Cajun, Southern. It's whatever. We're going to add our Ole Cajun in. So now you notice that it's starting to boil, and we're going to get ready to start adding in our seafood. So now I'm adding in my mahi-mahi. I'm adding in my shrimp. I'm going to add that in pretty slow. It's not going to take very long for that to cook. Once you put all of your seafood in there, it may take about maybe 10 minutes, because again, it's seafood, it's nice, it's light, it's not going to take very long. We're going to just continue to stir it up. Please ignore this spoon stirring. This is my daughter trying to help me stir it while I'm putting the seafood in there. It's driving me nuts. I just thought that I'd mention that, because I'm sure you're looking at that like, why is she stirring it like that? But anyways, let me get back to what I'm focusing on. So I'm adding in the seafood slowly, and we're just continuing to stir it up to make sure that there's not anything sticking, and just to make sure we get everything mixed really, really well in order to get all the flavors in there. So once we put all the seafood in there, we're just gonna let it come to a boil, and eventually we're going to put our top on there and just let it cook on low again for about 10 minutes, and then pretty much that's going to be it. I'm going to be getting my rice and all of that together. So once it's ready, as you see how it's cooked down, and we're going to put that on top of some cooked rice, and it's going to be all she wrote. So there's a plate, and like my husband said, he's going to add some hot sauce to his, but it was amazing. So stay warm out there, you guys. Enjoy.